Some secrets survive death itself. And on a cold Tuesday morning in March, I learned that betrayal doesn't always end with a funeral. My name is Greta Muller. I'm 66 years old, and this is the story I kept to myself for far too long. Not because I was ashamed, but because I needed time to understand what it all meant. Time to let the anger settle into something wiser, something I could carry without it breaking me. When Richard died, I felt the world tilt. 42 years of marriage ended on a hospital bed at 3 a.m. The doctors said it was his heart. Quick, painless. A mercy, they told me. But there's no mercy in losing your husband on a random Thursday, with his coffee still warm on the kitchen counter, and his reading glasses folded on the newspaper. The funeral was lovely. That's what people kept saying. It was lovely, Greta. As if flowers and hymns could fill the silence he left behind. Our daughter Emma flew in from Seattle. Our son Michael drove up from Austin. They held my hands. They cried with me. And then they left, because life goes on for everyone except the widow. 3 weeks after we buried Richard, I sat at our kitchen table with a stack of papers, bank statements, insurance forms. The lawyer had told me to close his accounts, to put everything in order. I remember touching my wedding ring, a simple gold band I'd worn for 42 years, and thinking how strange it was that life could be reduced to paperwork. The ring felt heavier that morning. Or maybe I just noticed its weight for the first time. I drove to First National Bank on a Tuesday. It was raining. Not hard, just that persistent drizzle that makes everything look gray. I remember parking under the oak tree in the lot, the one Richard always chose because it gave shade in summer. Old habits die hard, even when the person who taught them to you is gone. Inside, the bank smelled like cold air conditioning and new carpet. A young teller with kind eyes directed me to Mr. Peterson's office, Gerald Peterson. He'd been our account manager for 15 years. He knew Richard. He knew me. He'd approved our mortgage refinance, our car loans, our daughter's college fund. "Mrs. Miller," he said, standing up when I entered. His face was gentle, practiced sympathy. "I'm so sorry for your loss. Richard was a good man." I nodded. I'd heard those words so many times they'd started to sound like a foreign language. We sat down. I slid the death certificate across his desk. He typed on his computer. Click, click, click. The sound of my husband's life being closed out, account by account. And then he stopped. His fingers froze on the keyboard. His eyes narrowed. He looked at the screen, then at me, then back at the screen. "Mrs. Muller," he said slowly, There's something here I need to discuss with you privately." My heart knew before my mind did. It started beating faster, harder. "What is it?" I asked. He stood up and closed his office door. That's when I knew. You don't close the door for good news. "There's an account," he said quietly, "that I wasn't aware of. It's a joint account. Your husband opened it 7 years ago." 7 years. I twisted the ring on my finger. "A joint account?" I repeated. "With me?" Mr. Peterson's face told me everything before his mouth did. "No, Mrs. Miller. With someone else." The room tilted. Or maybe I did. "The second account holder is the only one who can access the funds now," he continued. "According to bank policy, since it's a survivorship account, the money legally belongs to them." I heard my voice, but it sounded far away. "How much money?" $86,000. The number hung in the air like smoke. "Who?" I whispered. "Who is the other person?" Mr. Peterson turned his computer screen toward me, and there, in cold digital letters, was a name I knew as well as my own. My hand flew to my mouth. The wedding ring caught the fluorescent light. Sometimes we trust people we shouldn't. Have you ever been disappointed by someone you loved? Tell me your story in the comments. I'd love to hear it. Because that name on the screen? It wasn't a stranger. It wasn't some mystery woman from Richard's past. It was someone who sat at our Thanksgiving table. Someone who called me Mom. But that day at the bank, something shattered inside me that would take years to rebuild. I need you to understand something before I continue. Richard wasn't a monster. That's what makes betrayal so cruel. It comes from people who were supposed to be good. Let me take you back. Back to before that Tuesday morning at the bank. Back to when my life made sense. Richard and I met in 1979 at a hardware store in Milwaukee. I was 23, buying paint for my first apartment. He was 25, working the evening shift to pay for engineering school. He helped me choose a color called Morning Dove, a soft gray blue that reminded me of sky before sunrise. "It's peaceful," he said, holding up the sample card. "Like you." We were married 8 months later in a small church with white roses and my mother's pearl necklace. I wore a dress I'd sewn myself. Richard wore his father's suit, altered to fit his broader shoulders. When he slipped the gold ring on my finger, his hands were shaking. "I'll take care of you," he whispered during our first dance. "Always." And he did. For 42 years, he did. We bought our house in 1982, a 3-bedroom colonial with a wraparound porch and a maple tree in the front yard. Richard built a swing for Emma when she was 4. Later, he built another for Michael. I can still see him out there on Saturday mornings, measuring twice, cutting once, whistling while he worked. Our life had rhythm. Coffee at 6, breakfast by 7. He'd kiss my forehead before leaving for work at the engineering firm, every single morning. Sometimes I'd touch my forehead after he left, trying to hold the feeling there. Sundays were sacred. Church at 9, lunch at noon, family time in the afternoon. In fall, we'd rake leaves together. In winter, we'd sit by the fire with hot chocolate. In spring, Richard would help me plant the garden, tomatoes, basil, marigolds. "You make things grow, Greta," he'd say, hands deep in the soil. "That's your gift." I thought I was making our marriage grow too. I thought I was paying attention. The ring on my finger was never just jewelry. It was a promise kept, day after day. I'd twist it when I was nervous, touch it when I needed strength, polish it on Sunday mornings before church. Richard had habits I knew by heart. He folded his newspaper in quarters to read at breakfast. He organized his tools by size in the garage. He called me Liebchen, little love in German, when he was feeling tender. He hated onions, but pretended to like my onion soup because I'd spent hours perfecting the recipe. We weren't perfect. We argued about money, about raising the kids, about his long hours at work, but we always came back to each other. Always. Our children grew up in that house. Emma with her books and her quiet way of seeing the world. Michael with his baseball cards and his loud laugh that sounded just like Richard's. We celebrated every birthday, every graduation, every small victory. When Emma got married, Richard cried. Not obviously, just a wetness at the corners of his eyes during the father-daughter dance. "She's not ours anymore," he whispered to me that night in bed. "She'll always be ours," I told him. That's what love means. I believed that. I believed love meant permanence. After the kids moved out, it was just us again. Some couples struggle with empty nest. We didn't. We'd have dinner at 6, chicken, potatoes, green beans. We'd watch television together, his hand on my knee. We'd go to bed at 10, his arm around my waist. "Still my Liebchen," he'd murmur before sleep took him. I'd touch my wedding ring in the dark and feel grateful. Grateful for 42 years. Grateful for a man who kept his promises. That's what I thought anyway. Looking back now, I wonder what I missed. Were there signs? Late nights at the office that weren't really at the office? Phone calls he took in the garage? A distance in his eyes I convinced myself was just exhaustion? Or maybe there were no signs at all. Maybe betrayal doesn't always announce itself. Maybe it just lives quietly in the spaces between "I love you" and "see you tonight." 7 years, Mr. Peterson had said. Richard opened that account 7 years ago. I counted backward. 7 years ago, Emma had just had her second baby. 7 years ago, Michael got his promotion. 7 years ago, Richard and I celebrated our 35th wedding anniversary at that Italian restaurant downtown. He gave me a necklace, a small silver bird. "You're free to be yourself with me," he'd said, fastening it around my neck. "Always have been." I wore that necklace to his funeral. And now, sitting in my car outside the bank, rain drumming on the roof, I took it off. The clasp felt stiff, resistant, like it didn't want to let go. I held the necklace in my palm. The silver bird stared up at me. "You're free to be yourself with me." But was I ever? Was any of it real? I put the necklace in the glove compartment and closed it. Then I started the car and drove home to the house where we'd built our life. The house that suddenly felt like a stranger's. Because the name on that bank account wasn't a stranger's name at all. It belonged to someone who'd sat at our dining table every Christmas, someone who'd slept in our guest room, someone who'd held my hand at Richard's funeral and told me, "We'll get through this together, Mom." But she already knew about the money, didn't she? She had to. And that's when I realized the betrayal didn't start with Richard. It started with the person who helped him hide it. I didn't sleep that night. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, listening to the house settle, all those small creaks and sighs that used to feel like conversation. Now they just felt empty. The name on that bank account played in my mind like a broken record, over and over. Each time my heart clenched a little tighter. Jennifer, my daughter-in-law, Michael's wife, the woman who'd been part of our family for 12 years. I kept trying to make it make sense. There had to be an explanation, a reasonable one. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe Richard had added her to an account for emergency purposes, something practical, something innocent. But $86,000 isn't practical. It's planned. I got up at dawn and made coffee. The kitchen felt different. Everything felt different. I sat at the table where Richard and I had eaten breakfast for 42 years, and I couldn't stop twisting my wedding ring. Around and around. The gold was worn smooth from decades of habit. That's when I started remembering the small things, the fractures I'd ignored because they seemed too insignificant to matter. It started, I think, about 7 years ago, right around the time Richard opened that account. Jennifer had always been present, more present than Emma, if I'm honest. Emma lived in Seattle with her husband, Mark. They visited twice a year, Christmas and summer. It was enough. We understood. They had their own lives, their own rhythms. But Jennifer and Michael lived only 30 minutes away, and Jennifer came by constantly. At first, I was grateful. After the kids moved out, the house felt too quiet. Jennifer would stop by on Tuesday afternoons with fresh bread from the bakery. She'd sit with me in the kitchen, talking about her job at the real estate office, asking about my day. "You're like a second mother to me," she'd say, squeezing my hand. "You know that, right?" I believed her. Why wouldn't I? She seemed genuine, sweet, a little lonely maybe. Her own mother had passed away when Jennifer was young. I thought I was filling that void for her. Richard encouraged it. "It's good for Greta to have company," he'd tell Michael. "She gets lonely during the day." But looking back now, I remember how Richard's face would change when Jennifer arrived. A brightness, an energy that hadn't been there moments before. And Jennifer, she'd light up too. She'd hug him a little longer than necessary. She'd laugh at his jokes a little louder. She'd touch his arm when she talked, her hand lingering. I told myself it was affection, familial warmth. Jennifer was young, 34 years old, beautiful in that effortless way some women are. Blonde hair always perfectly styled, clothes that fit just right, a smile that could make you forget what you were saying. Michael adored her. They'd been married for 12 years, together for 14. High school sweethearts, if you can believe it. Michael used to joke that he won the lottery the day Jennifer said yes. "I'm the luckiest guy alive," he'd say, his arm around her waist. I'd look at them and feel grateful my son had found what Richard and I had. A partner, a love that would last. But there were moments, small fractures in the picture I'd built, like the time I came home early from the grocery store and found Jennifer in Richard's study. She was sitting at his desk, going through papers. When she saw me, she jumped. "Greta, you scared me." She laughed, pressing her hand to her chest. "Richard asked me to find a document for him, something about taxes." It was possible. Richard's filing system was chaotic, but her face was flushed, guilty. Or the time I answered Richard's phone because he was in the shower, and Jennifer's voice came through, breathless. "Richard, I need to talk to you. It's important." "It's Greta," I said. Silence. Then, "Oh, hi, Mom. I'll call back later." "Is everything okay?" I asked. "Yes, fine. It's nothing urgent." But she never called back, at least not that I knew of. Or the Christmas 5 years ago when Jennifer gave Richard an expensive watch, a Rolex, silver with a blue face. "Jennifer, this is too much," Richard said. But he was smiling, really smiling. "You deserve it," she said, her hand on his shoulder. "You've been so good to me." Michael looked uncomfortable. Emma raised her eyebrows at me across the room, but I pushed it away. I told myself Jennifer just had expensive taste, that she was generous, that I was being paranoid. "It's a beautiful gift," I said, because what else could I say? Richard wore that watch every day until he died. It's in a box in my bedroom now, along with his wedding ring. 2 bands of gold that meant everything and nothing. As I tell you this, I wonder where you're listening from. Write your city below so I can feel a little closer to you. The fractures kept coming. Small, barely visible. Richard working late more often. Jennifer texting him constantly. I'd see his phone light up at dinner, her name on the screen. Just checking in, she'd say when I asked what was so urgent. Business lunches that turned into dinners. Jennifer's helping me with some investments, Richard would explain. She's good with money. And she was. Jennifer had a way with finances. She'd built a successful real estate career, flipping houses, making deals. She talked about money the way other people talked about the weather, casually, confidently. Let me help you with your retirement planning, she'd offered once, sitting at our kitchen table with her laptop open. I can show you how to maximize your returns. Richard had been interested. Too interested. We're fine, I'd said, perhaps too quickly. We have a financial advisor. Jennifer's smile didn't quite reach her eyes. Of course. I just want to help. But help with what? I wondered now, sitting in my kitchen with cold coffee and a breaking heart. Help hide $86,000? I stood up and walked to Richard's study. It looked the same as it had the day he died. His engineering books on the shelves, his diplomas on the wall, his reading glasses on the desk. I opened the desk drawer. Inside were folders, receipts, old birthday cards from the kids, and beneath them, a small leather notebook I'd never seen before. My hands were shaking when I opened it. Inside were numbers, dates, amounts, all in Richard's handwriting. And at the top of the first page, 2 words, for Jennifer. I sat at Richard's desk for 2 hours, reading that notebook. Page after page of numbers that told a story I didn't want to understand. The entries started 7 years ago. Small amounts at first, $500, $1,000. Then they grew, $2,000, $5,000. The numbers climbed steadily, month after month, year after year. Each entry had a date and a note, brief, clinical, like a business ledger. March 2018, property down payment assistance. July 2018, car repair emergency. December 2018, investment opportunity. May 2019, medical expenses. Medical expenses. I remembered that. Jennifer had mentioned something about a procedure, something minor. Michael had been worried about the cost because their insurance didn't cover it fully. Don't worry about it, Richard had told him at Sunday dinner. Family takes care of family. I thought he meant emotional support, words of encouragement, not $86,000 funneled through a secret account. I kept reading. The amounts grew larger. September 2020, business startup capital, $15,000. February 2021, house renovation, $8,500. June 2022, investment portfolio, $12,000. $15,000 for a business? I tried to remember. Yes, Jennifer had started some kind of consulting company. Real estate coaching, she'd called it. She'd been so excited about it. Richard's been so supportive, she'd told me over coffee one afternoon. He really believes in me. He believed in her with our money. Money I didn't know existed. I felt sick. The wedding ring on my finger felt like it was burning, but I kept reading because I needed to see it all. I needed to know the full scope of what my husband had hidden from me. The last entry was dated 2 weeks before Richard died. January 2025, final transfer, $10,000. Account fully funded. She's secure now. She's secure now. I closed the notebook and pressed my palms against my eyes. My breathing came in short, sharp bursts. The study smelled like Richard, his cologne, his coffee, the leather of his chair. Why? I whispered to the empty room. Why would you do this? But the room had no answers, only silence and the ticking of the clock on the wall. The same clock that had measured out our 42 years together. Tick, tick, tick. Each second a small betrayal I hadn't noticed. I wanted to believe there was an explanation, a good reason. Maybe Richard was helping Jennifer secretly because Michael didn't know. Maybe it was some kind of surprise for them both. Maybe, but I couldn't finish the thought, because in my heart, I knew. You don't hide $86,000 from your wife for a good reason. I put the notebook in my purse and walked to the kitchen. I needed to think, to process, but my mind kept circling back to one question. Did Michael know? My son, My gentle, trusting son who worked 60 hours a week as a physical therapist to provide for his family, who still called me every Sunday evening just to check in, who'd held me at Richard's funeral and whispered, "We'll take care of you, Mom. You're not alone." Did he know his father had been funding his wife's life behind everyone's back? I picked up my phone 3 times to call him. 3 times I put it down. What would I say? Your father betrayed me with your wife? Not physically, maybe not physically, but financially? Emotionally? In some way I still didn't fully understand? I couldn't do that to him. Not yet. Not until I knew more. Instead, I did what any mother would do. I looked for more evidence. I went through Richard's emails. His password was still saved on our home computer. I'd never thought to check before, never had a reason to doubt him. The inbox was mostly work correspondence, engineering reports, project updates, nothing unusual. But then I found a folder labeled JM, just initials, innocent enough. Inside were hundreds of emails, hundreds, dating back 7 years. My hands trembled as I clicked the first one. "Richard, thank you so much for helping with the down payment. You have no idea what this means to us. Michael is so happy. I'm so happy. You're the best father-in-law a girl could ask for. Love, Jennifer." Father-in-law. Appropriate. Normal. I clicked another one from 6 months later. I can't thank you enough for understanding. This opportunity could change everything for me. For us. You believe in me when no one else does. That means more than you know. XO, J. XO. Hugs and kisses. Still normal, I told myself. Jennifer was affectionate. That's just how she was. But the emails continued, and the tone shifted. Slowly, subtly. "Richard, I can't stop thinking about our conversation yesterday. You really see me, don't you? Not many people do. J.R. Michael doesn't understand this part of me. But you do. Thank you for being someone I can talk to. Really talk to. Richard, sometimes I think you know me better than my own husband does. Is that wrong? It feels wrong. But it also feels right." I stopped reading. My chest was tight. My throat burned. This wasn't just money. This was intimacy. Emotional intimacy. The kind that should exist between husband and wife, not between father-in-law and daughter-in-law. I clicked forward to more recent emails. One from a year ago caught my eye. I know we said we'd stop. I know this is complicated, but I can't pretend I don't feel what I feel. You make me feel alive in a way I haven't felt in years. I know you feel it too. Don't you? Stop what? What were they stopping? Richard's response was brief. "We need to be careful. Greta can't know. Michael can't know. This stays between us." I read those words 5 times. This stays between us. Not, there's nothing to know. Not, you're mistaken. Not, this is inappropriate and needs to end. Just, this stays between us. I stood up so fast, the chair fell backward. The crash echoed through the house. What would you have done in my place? Would you keep reading? Would you stop and pretend you never saw it? I kept reading. Because I had to know. I had to see how deep this went. The most recent email was from 3 weeks before Richard died. Jennifer had written, "I'm scared, Richard. What if this falls apart? What if we lose everything we've built?" Richard's response, "You won't lose anything. I've made sure of that. The account is secure. Even if something happens to me, you'll be taken care of. I promise you that, Liebchen." Liebchen, my pet name. The German word he'd called me for 42 years. The word that meant little love. The word that was supposed to be ours alone. He'd given it to her. I closed the computer, walked to the bathroom, and for the first time since Richard died, I was sick, physically sick, my body rejecting the truth the way my mind had been trying to. When I finally stopped shaking, I looked at myself in the mirror. My face was pale, my eyes were red. I looked old. 66 years old and suddenly feeling every single one of them. The woman staring back at me wasn't the woman I thought I was. She was someone who'd been fooled, betrayed, replaced. And the worst part? The absolute worst part? I still had to see Jennifer, because tomorrow was Sunday, and every Sunday, Michael and Jennifer came for dinner. They were expecting me to cook, to smile, to pretend everything was normal. But how do you sit across from the woman who stole your husband's heart and serve her pot roast? Sunday arrived like an executioner. Inevitable. Unavoidable. I woke up at 5 in the morning, even though they weren't coming until noon. I couldn't sleep, couldn't stop my mind from rehearsing what I'd say, how I'd act, whether I could even look at Jennifer without my face betraying everything I knew. I made pot roast. The same recipe I'd made for 42 years. Brown the meat. Add carrots, potatoes, onions. Let it cook low and slow until the house smells like home. Except the house didn't feel like home anymore. It felt like a crime scene. I set the table. 3 places. The good dishes. White china with blue trim that my mother had given me as a wedding present. I touched the wedding ring on my finger and wondered if my mother had ever felt what I was feeling. If she'd ever discovered that the life she thought she had was built on lies. At 11:30, I heard Michael's truck pull into the driveway. My heart started racing. I wiped my hands on my apron and checked my reflection in the hallway mirror. I looked normal, composed, like a woman who didn't know her husband had betrayed her with their son's wife, like a woman who could survive this. The doorbell rang. Michael never rang the doorbell. He always just walked in. But something felt different today. Everything felt different. I opened the door. Michael stood there with flowers, yellow tulips, my favorite. His eyes were red. He looked like he hadn't slept. "Mom," he said, and his voice cracked. Jennifer wasn't with him. "Where's Jennifer?" I asked, though part of me was relieved. I wasn't ready to see her face yet. Michael stepped inside and closed the door. He set the flowers on the hall table. Then he turned to me, and I saw something in his expression that made my stomach drop. "Mom, we need to talk," he said. "About Dad, about Jennifer, about everything." The floor tilted. "What do you mean?" He walked to the living room and sat on the couch, the same couch where Richard used to sit, reading his newspaper, his reading glasses perched on his nose. Michael put his head in his hands. "I found out 3 days ago," he said quietly. "About the money, about the account." I couldn't breathe. "You knew?" "No." He looked up at me, and his eyes were full of pain. "I just found out. Jennifer told me. She confessed everything." I sat down slowly in the armchair across from him. The wedding ring on my finger caught the light coming through the window. Bright, mocking. "Tell me," I whispered. Michael took a deep breath. "Jennifer and I have been having problems for a while. A long time, actually. We've been seeing a marriage counselor, trying to work through things. And 3 days ago, in a session, she broke down. She told me about the money, about Dad helping her, about—" He stopped, his jaw clenched. "About what, Michael?" "About the emotional affair." There it was. The words I'd been avoiding. The truth I'd been dancing around in my mind, trying to reframe as something less devastating. Emotional affair. "She said it never got physical," Michael continued, his voice hollow. "She swears it didn't. But for the last 7 years, she and Dad had this connection, this relationship that went beyond family. He gave her money, attention, understanding, all the things she said she wasn't getting from me." He laughed bitterly. "And maybe she was right. Maybe I wasn't enough. I was working all the time, trying to build our life, trying to give her everything she wanted. But it was never enough. So she turned to my father. Michael. She said Dad made her feel special, seen. He believed in her dreams when I was too tired to listen. He supported her business when I was worried about the risk. He called her Liebchen." My breath caught. Michael heard it. "You knew?" he asked. "Did you know that?" I couldn't speak. I just nodded. "God, Mom." He stood up and paced to the window. "I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry for what they did to you. To us. Jennifer said she never meant for it to go this far, that it started innocently, Dad helping us with money when we were struggling. But then it became more. She started depending on him emotionally. And he loved her," I said. The words felt like glass in my throat. Michael turned to look at me. "She said he told her that once, 2 years ago, that he loved her, that if circumstances were different, if they'd met in another life, things would be different. Another life. As if this life, our life, the one Richard and I had built for 42 years, didn't matter." I twisted my wedding ring. Around and around. The gold was warm from my skin. "Where is Jennifer now?" I asked. "She moved out. She's staying with her sister in Chicago. She said she can't face you, that she's too ashamed." "Ashamed?" I repeated. The word tasted bitter. She should be. Mom, I'm divorcing her. I want you to know that. I can't be married to someone who had an affair with my father. I can't look at her without seeing Dad's face, without feeling like I lost both of them at the same time. I stood up and went to my son. I wrapped my arms around him the way I had when he was a little boy with scraped knees and hurt feelings. He was taller than me now, broader, but he felt small in my embrace. Broken. You didn't lose me, I whispered. I'm still here. He held me tight. How are you so calm? How are you not screaming, throwing things? Dad betrayed you. Jennifer betrayed both of us. The money, the lies, I know, I said softly. I found out at the bank. I've spent the last 4 days reading their emails, going through Richard's things, trying to understand how this happened. Michael pulled back and looked at me. And do you understand it? I thought about that question. Really thought about it. Did I understand how the man I loved for 42 years could call another woman Liebchen? Could hide $86,000? Could build an entire secret emotional life with our son's wife? No, I said honestly. I don't understand it. But I understand something else. What? That betrayal doesn't just break your heart. It breaks your whole story. Everything I thought I knew about my marriage, about Richard, about us, I have to rewrite it now. I have to figure out which parts were real and which parts were lies. I walked to the window and looked out at the front yard. The maple tree Richard had planted 30 years ago was blooming. Pink blossoms everywhere, like confetti celebrating something I could no longer name. Your father wasn't a monster, Michael. That's the hardest part. He was good to me in so many ways. He provided for us. He built this house. He showed up every single day. But somewhere along the way, he stopped choosing me. He stopped protecting what we had. And he chose her instead. I'm so angry at him, Michael said, his voice thick. He's dead, and I can't even confront him. I can't ask him why. Why would he do this to you, to me, to our family? I turned back to face my son. We'll never know why, and maybe that's the lesson. Maybe we're not supposed to understand other people's choices. We're only responsible for our own. I still wonder if I did the right thing. What about you? What would you have done in my place? Michael wiped his eyes. The account. The $86,000. Jennifer has legal access to it, but she said she doesn't want it. She said it's blood money, that she wants to sign it over to you. I don't want it either, I said immediately. I don't want anything that came from their betrayal. Then what do we do with it? I thought about Richard's notebook, all those entries. For Jennifer, every dollar a small piece of our marriage chipped away and given to someone else. Donate it, I said. Find a charity. Something that helps families stay together, or helps people rebuild after betrayal. I don't care, just get it out of our lives. Michael nodded slowly. Okay, I'll handle it. We stood there in silence for a moment. The pot roast was still cooking in the kitchen. The smell that used to mean Sunday, family, safety, it meant nothing now. Are you going to be okay, Mom? Michael asked. I looked down at my wedding ring. 42 years of marriage, reduced to a band of gold that suddenly felt too heavy to wear. I don't know, I said honestly, but I'll try. That's all any of us can do, try. After Michael left, I went to the kitchen and turned off the oven. I stood there looking at the pot roast, perfectly cooked, tender, exactly the way Richard liked it. Then I threw it away, all of it, the meat, the vegetables, the dish my mother had given me. Some things can't be salvaged. Some things you just have to let go. I took off my wedding ring and set it on the counter. For 42 years, I'd worn that ring as a promise kept. Now I knew the truth. Some promises are only kept by one person. And that's not a marriage. That's a performance. Jennifer called me 2 weeks later. I saw her name on my phone screen, and my first instinct was to let it ring, to delete her number, to pretend she didn't exist. But I answered, because I needed to hear her voice. I needed to look this betrayal in the face. Greta, she said. Her voice was small, broken. Please don't hang up. I said nothing. I sat at the kitchen table, the same table where she'd sat dozens of times, drinking my coffee, eating my food, stealing my husband's heart. I know you hate me, she continued. I hate myself. What I did was unforgivable. I know that. Then why did you do it? My voice was calm, steady. It surprised me. She was quiet for a long moment. Then, because he made me feel important, special, like I mattered. Michael was always working, always tired. And Richard, he listened. He saw me. He was my husband, Jennifer, not yours. I know. She was crying now. I know. It started so innocently. He was helping us with money, being kind. And then somewhere it became more. I didn't mean for it to happen. You called him Liebchen, I said. That wasn't innocent. That was deliberate. Silence. Did you sleep with him? I asked. The question I'd been avoiding. The one that kept me awake at night. No, I swear to God, no. It never got physical, but emotionally. She took a shaky breath. Emotionally, I betrayed Michael. And I betrayed you. I became someone I don't recognize. $86,000, I said. That's a lot of emotional support. I'm signing it over to you. All of it. I don't want it. It's poison. I don't want it either, I told her. It's going to charity. I don't want anything that came from what you and Richard had. What we had wasn't real, Jennifer said quickly. It was a fantasy, a mistake. My marriage to Michael, that was real. Our family dinners, the holidays, you teaching me to bake, that was real. Was it? I asked. Or were you performing? Playing the perfect daughter-in-law while stealing my husband? Both, she whispered. It was both. I loved you, Greta. I still love you. And I hate that I hurt you. I hate that I destroyed everything. I twisted the space where my wedding ring used to be. The skin was lighter there. 42 years of marriage had left a mark. I need to know something, I said. Did Richard love you? I don't know, she said honestly. He said he did. Once. But I think maybe he loved the idea of me. Someone young who needed him, who made him feel vital again. I don't think it was ever really about me. It was about him feeling alive. That hurt more than I expected, because it meant Richard hadn't just betrayed me. He'd betrayed himself, the man of integrity he'd always claimed to be. I can't forgive you, I said. Not now. Maybe not ever. I know. I'm not asking for forgiveness. I'm sorry. For everything. I hung up. The confrontation I'd imagined, screaming, throwing things, unleashing all my rage, never happened. Because what was the point? Jennifer was already losing everything. Her marriage, her family, her place at our table. And Richard was gone. I couldn't confront him, couldn't make him explain, couldn't ask him when he stopped loving me enough to stay faithful. The loss wasn't just him. It was everything. The memories I'd cherished were tainted now. The 42 years I'd treasured felt like a lie. But I kept my dignity. I didn't fall apart. I didn't become bitter and twisted. I just let go. I sold the house 3 months later. The one Richard built. The one where we raised our children. The one where he sat at his desk and wrote for Jennifer in a leather notebook. Emma flew in from Seattle to help me pack. She didn't know the full story, only that Richard had hidden money and that Jennifer and Michael were divorcing. Are you sure about selling? She asked, wrapping dishes in newspaper. I'm sure, I said. This house holds too many ghosts. I moved into a small apartment across town. 2 bedrooms, a balcony with a view of the park. Simple, clean, mine. Michael came by to help me set up. He was thinner, quieter. The divorce was destroying him. I miss Dad, he said one afternoon, assembling my bookshelf. But I'm also so angry at him I can't breathe sometimes. That's grief, I told him. You're grieving who you thought he was. Who was he, Mom? Really? I thought about that. Richard the provider. Richard the builder. Richard who kissed my forehead every morning. Richard who called another woman Liebchen. He was human, I said. Flawed and selfish and capable of terrible choices. But he was also your father. And he loved you. That part was real. Michael nodded, but his eyes were wet. The thing about betrayal is that it doesn't just break one thing. It breaks everything connected to it. Michael lost his father and his wife. I lost my husband and my story. Our family lost its center. But we survived. Some nights I still reach for my wedding ring, still twist the empty space on my finger. Some nights I dream about Richard and wake up crying. But mostly I'm learning to live with the loss, to carry it without letting it destroy me. Because that's the only way forward. Through the pain, not around it. Life has a way of keeping score. I didn't need to seek revenge. The universe did it for me. I learned this 2 years after Richard died, 2 years after I sold the house and started rebuilding my life in that quiet apartment with the park view. Michael called me one Tuesday evening. "Mom, I thought you should know. Jennifer lost her business, the real estate coaching company Richard had funded with $15,000 of hidden money. Gone." "What happened?" I asked. "Bad investments?" She expanded too fast, took on debt she couldn't manage. She had to file for bankruptcy. She lost everything, the business, her savings, even her car. I waited for the satisfaction to come, the vindication, but all I felt was tired. Where is she now? Living with her sister still, working as a receptionist at a dental office. She's struggling. I thought about Jennifer's confident smile, her expensive clothes, the way she used to talk about money like it was easy. "The money Dad gave her," Michael continued. "She invested most of it in the business. It's all gone now, every penny. $86,000 vanished, as if it never existed." "And Michael," I said softly, "how are you?" "Better," he said, and I could hear truth in his voice. "I started dating someone. Sarah. She's a teacher, simple, honest, the opposite of Jennifer." "I'm glad," I said, and I meant it. Life kept score with others too. Emma told me that Jennifer tried to reach out to her on social media. "She wanted to apologize," Emma said, "to explain herself. I blocked her. I don't need her explanations. The family Jennifer tried to be part of, closed to her forever. Every holiday, every birthday, every milestone. She'd lost access to all of it. I ran into Jennifer once, about 3 years after Richard died, at the grocery store. I was buying vegetables. She was buying discount bread. She looked different, older, tired. Her hair wasn't styled. Her clothes were worn. She saw me and froze. For a moment, we just stared at each other across the produce section. Then she opened her mouth to speak, but I shook my head. There was nothing left to say. I watched her walk away, shoulders hunched, pushing her cart toward the clearance aisle. I thought about the woman she used to be, confident, beautiful, the one who turned Richard's head and made him forget his vows. Now she was just another middle-aged woman struggling to get by, alone, working a job she probably hated, living a life much smaller than the one she'd dreamed of. I didn't feel sorry for her, but I didn't feel victorious either. I just felt free, because I realized something important that day. Jennifer's punishment wasn't mine to deliver. It came from her own choices, the lies she told, the marriage she destroyed, the trust she broke. Life had given her exactly what she'd earned. Nothing more, nothing less. As for Richard, his legacy became complicated. Michael rarely talked about him anymore. When he did, it was with sadness tinged with anger. Emma was more forgiving. "Dad made mistakes," she said, "but he was still our father." I understood both perspectives. At night, when I was alone, I sometimes thought about Richard lying in his hospital bed those final moments. Did he think about me? About what he'd done? Did he regret calling Jennifer Liebchen? Did he wish he'd been brave enough to be faithful? I'd never know, but I knew this. His affair, emotional or otherwise, didn't define me. It defined him. I was still Greta, still the woman who made pot roast on Sundays and planted gardens in spring, still the mother who raised 2 good children, still the wife who'd kept her promises even when her husband didn't. That hadn't changed. What changed was my understanding of love. Real love doesn't hide bank accounts, doesn't call 2 women by the same pet name, doesn't divide loyalty between wife and fantasy. Real love shows up, stays faithful, keeps its promises. Richard's love was incomplete, flawed, human, and maybe that's the karma he faced, dying before he could make it right, before he could confess, before he could ask for forgiveness. He took his secrets to the grave and left us to uncover them. That's his burden to carry now. Wherever he is, mine is to keep living, to find peace, to remember that justice doesn't always look like revenge. Sometimes it just looks like truth. 5 years have passed since that Tuesday morning at the bank. 5 years since I learned that betrayal doesn't always end with a funeral. I'm 71 now. My hair is silver. My hands have more wrinkles. But my heart is lighter than it's been in years. I still live in that small apartment with the park view. Emma visits twice a year. Michael comes every Sunday for dinner, sometimes with Sarah, the teacher he married last spring. She's nothing like Jennifer. She's real, kind, and when she looks at my son, I see genuine love, the kind that doesn't need secrets to survive. I've learned so much in these 5 years, about marriage, about trust, about the difference between loving someone and truly knowing them. Richard wasn't a villain, but he wasn't the hero I'd made him either. He was a man who made choices, some good, many good, actually, but some were devastating, and those devastating choices changed everything. I've forgiven him. Not because he deserved it, but because I deserved peace. Forgiveness doesn't mean what he did was okay. It means I'm no longer carrying the weight of his betrayal. I'm no longer letting his choices define my worth. The wedding ring I wore for 42 years? It sits in a small box in my dresser drawer now. Sometimes I take it out and hold it. Remember the young woman who wore it with such hope, such trust. I don't wear it anymore, but I don't hate it either. It's just part of my history now. A chapter that closed. I've started wearing my grandmother's ring instead, a simple silver band with a small blue stone. It reminds me that I come from a long line of strong women, women who survived, who rebuilt, who refused to let heartbreak have the final word. Jennifer? I heard she moved away, left the state entirely. I don't know where she is now, and I don't need to. Her story is her own to live. Her consequences are her own to carry. But I'll tell you what I've learned, what I wish I could tell my younger self, the woman who stood at that bank 5 years ago with her world crumbling. You are not defined by someone else's betrayal. You are defined by how you respond to it. I could have become bitter, angry. I could have let Richard's choices poison the rest of my life. Instead, I chose to keep living, keep loving, keep trusting, carefully, wisely, but still trusting. Because the alternative is a half-life, a closed heart. And I refuse to give Richard and Jennifer that power over me. My life now is simple. I volunteer at the library on Tuesdays. I have coffee with friends on Thursday mornings. I garden on my little balcony. Tomatoes, herbs, flowers. I make things grow. That's still my gift. And I write. I write letters to women like me. Women who've discovered betrayal after decades of marriage. Women who thought they knew their husbands, but learned they only knew one version of them. I tell them, you will survive this. The pain won't last forever. And on the other side of grief, there's wisdom, peace, a life that's authentically yours. Sometimes people ask me if I regret my marriage. 42 years with a man who betrayed me, was it worth it? And I say yes, because it gave me Michael and Emma. It gave me decades of good memories that were real. Even if the ending was false, it taught me about love and loyalty, even if I learned some lessons through loss. But I also say this, I don't miss being married to Richard. I miss the man I thought he was. And once I understood the difference, I was finally free. If my story helps one woman open her eyes, it was worth telling. If it helps one person understand that betrayal is not the end, just a painful middle, then every difficult word was worthwhile. Life is long, hearts are resilient, and sometimes the best revenge is simply to heal, to build a new life from the ashes of the old one, to prove that you're stronger than the secrets that tried to break you. I'm 71 years old. I live alone. My husband is dead. My family is smaller than it used to be, but I'm not lonely. I'm not broken. I'm not defined by what was done to me. I'm just Greta, a woman who survived, who chose wisdom over bitterness, who kept her dignity when everything else was taken. And if you're listening to this story because you've faced betrayal too, whether it ended at a funeral or elsewhere, I want you to know, you will be okay. Not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually you'll wake up and realize the pain doesn't own you anymore. You'll realize you're free. Thank you for staying with me until the end. If this story touched your heart, subscribe and turn on the bell to hear more stories of women who turned pain into wisdom. Every day, one woman, one life lesson. Share this story with someone you love. Sometimes, one story can change an entire day. God bless you, and see you next time.